Good afternoon. My name is Ann Winkle, and here is my Module 1, my intro video, and my critical analysis reflection on equity, inclusiveness, and cultural responsiveness for the class cultural diversity. And here we go. So, to begin, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Glen Elder, Kansas. It's a small town in north central Kansas. I have a family of five. My dad co owns and operates Wingo Manufacturing, which manufactures and sells livestock equipment in Glen Elder. My mom is the vice president of Farmway Credit Union in Beloit. I have an older brother that works for NASA in Virginia, and I have a younger sister who's a pharmacist at a Hy-Vee in Kansas City. And they recently just had a baby, so now I have a nephew. I graduated from Beloit High in 2009. Then I went to Wichita State and got a secondary math degree by 2013. And now I'm working to get my admin degree from Fort Hays, and I hope to graduate this December. It's finally almost here. Pictures of me. Here is me in Virginia Beach. This is my old school, which we're about to find out. Former school of mine. Little country girl in me. Family vacation in Mexico. Recently moved to Texas. So here's me and my boyfriend. And here's a picture at University of Texas. Coworkers from this year and coworkers from my previous school. So just some few pictures about me here. And so you can see a little bit about my life. In terms of my work, I've had math teaching jobs. I taught at Truesdale Middle School in Wichita, Kansas for year 1 through 5. Then I went to Heights High School and taught Algebra 1 for years 6 through 8. And now I'm at Nelson Middle School in Frisco, Texas I just completed my 9th year of teaching, and I plan to be there again next year. And then I hopefully become a high school principal or assistant principal somewhere in my future. I've also been a coach. I put that on hold while I get my degree. You can see the things I've coached there. Some activities I love to be outside. I play the piano. I'd like to tutor kids in math when I'm not trying to get a master's. I love to be with family and friends and discover this new city of Dallas and all the suburbs in the state of Texas. Goals, short term, I hope to finish this master's degree. I'm almost there. Manage my time between school, being in grad school, having a personal life. And then learn the new ways of teaching in a new school and in a new state. I did pretty well this last year, I feel like, but I still have a lot to learn. And then long term, I hope to become confident in my admin role by completing my practicum hours and then get an admin job and start a family. So a little bit about myself. Now on to the research and the critical analysis over what we learned in terms of culture and climate at schools. So the first one was positive school culture. The why we need to have a positive school culture. It can decrease absenteeism, kind of obvious, but if kids don't feel like it's a positive environment, they're not going to come to school. It'll improve educational equity. It reduces bullying. It increases academic performance. I'll get into a little bit more of that in a second here. It gives everyone a sense of direction. If it's a positive school environment, we all have goals. We have a bond. We work together, so it gives us a sense of direction. It was said in the research that negative emotions make it harder for the brain to process and learn, which goes back to academic performance. And then teacher retention and satisfaction. If you have a positive environment, teachers are more likely to stay. How do we have a positive school culture? We have to have a routine that has clear rules, practices, feedback loops, get feedback, reflect, make changes, get feedback, reflect, make changes, and data plans that help educators deliver instruction. Continued some ways that we can have a positive school culture. The leader of the school, the principal, and the leadership team have to be consistent. They have to have clear expectations. They have to appreciate the staff and the students. We need to assume positive intent always with our teachers. And then we have to give immediate feedback. We can't wait weeks and weeks. And to tie into that, another article talked about, so if the feedback is negative, we have to discipline if it's misbehavior of students or even teachers. And we have to make adjustments after that feedback. Those things have to happen immediately. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The biggest, most important one for me is that all staff, everyone that works at a school, must create and sustain relationships with students. So many of these things that I'm going to talk about today, it's all from building relationships. I'm a huge believer in relationships. We have to have needs assessments with faculty, opportunities to address those, and then we have to communicate that we are making those changes and just communicate in general. Needs assessment was brought up by several articles in having those needs assessment and then using them in the data that they bring to the table. The leadership team has to remain positive. They have to model their rules and expectations, and then they have to promote the C's of positive leadership. You can read more about that. There were several leadership experts mentioned, and it was just 7 positive C's of leaderships. So that was mentioned as well. And then we have to use the school data to set a goal and determine strategies towards our next step. So again, that gives us a sense of direction. We all have to have a goal, and using that needs assessment again, and determine what are our next steps to make the school culture better and more positive. So that's on positive school culture. Now we're going to move on to inclusive, supportive school culture. This is where we have a space. If you have inclusiveness, you have a space where staff, students, families feel connected, supportive, and involved in meeting every student's learning needs. Kids, students with disabilities and students without. We have to operate on the premises that students with disabilities are as fundamentally competent as students without disabilities. And one of the article mentioned that students without disabilities, they benefit just as much as students without when you have this inclusive environment, because they get to things like peer coaching, learning to work with students and if you peer coach, you learn it better, and then you just learn to work with everybody. And that's a good future career skill to have. So it's not just about making it better for the students with disabilities. Students without disabilities benefit from that inclusiveness as well. Strategies, you got to use a variety of instructional formats and learning modalities, modes, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. You have to address all those different modes. We have to give all our students access to academic curricular content. We have to have this universal design for learning. So we have to do things like use large print, have headphones, dictionaries, bilingual dictionaries, things like that, so that everyone can learn regardless of their needs. So equitable school culture. What does that look like? It's a classroom. It's where the classroom, the school, and the system where excellence is achieved for every student, no matter where they come from or who the student is or where they come from. Diversity is the norm for all. Excellence is the norm for all. It's not just a few diverse. It's not excellence for just a few. It's the norm for everyone. We embrace the uniqueness, strengths, and challenges of a student and provide equitable support, understanding, expectations, and encouragement so that they succeed. We have to give all expectations is big to me. We should have the same expectations for all students. How do we get there? There's some vocab here I wanted to explain. So we have to know about these 2 words, microaggressions, which from my knowledge, the best way to explain microaggressions is like they're just subtle things that you say to different cultures. Like if you say to a African-American student, hey, I'm glad that you're not loud like everyone else. That's a microaggression. Like we might not realize what we're saying, but something just so subtle as that. And then there's anti-racism, which is a process of unlearning our biases and observing ourselves and being reflective of how those biases may come out, even though we don't intend for them to come out. So we have to have knowledge about those 2 things if we want to have an equitable school culture. Big words there. We have to ritualize meeting space. We have to, give time, and we have to have a process for our meetings and allow everyone to share and everyone to have their moment, so that they feel like their opinion is valued. We have to establish norms that create the brave space. Those 2 kind of go together. And then we have to practice the culture of micro affirmations. We have to hire and retain a diverse faculty and staff. And then we have to engage in storytelling. I like this piece of storytelling because we have to allow, especially staff, to, explain their background, talk about themselves, so we know more about their identity and what they value. And then we can learn from those people and just know more about our students. Responsive school culture. The reason behind the why behind that, subtractive schooling was mentioned in one of the articles about how we ignore and downplay the strengths of diverse students. That's subtractive schooling. So, for example, if a kid is Hispanic, we ignore how knowledge they might be in the language of Spanish, or just say it's a deficit for them. It's so we don't appreciate what those diverse students bring to the table. And so therefore we also have poor self-concepts, we have discipline problems, we have poor academic outcomes for the minorities. Those are the things that happen when we don't respond well and have a responsive school culture. So how do we create a responsive school culture? Environments are built by, with, and for the students. We focus on the alignment and coherence of culturally responsive curriculum. We have to have high quality materials, practices and assessments for all our students. And then we have to have professional learning, coaching, and evaluation to ensure equity and opportunities and outcomes for all students. I like the piece of evaluation on there because it makes sure that we're holding all teachers accountable for their actions as well, and make sure that they are giving all students opportunities and outcomes they deserve. And some tips that I found in the research, in order to have a responsive school culture, we have to match instruction to cultural norms. We have to adjust our wait time. Different cultures might take longer to respond, just basic things like that. Be sensitive to cultural shifts, like on Monday, when kids come back from the weekend, realize that they might have been using their home culture and doing things at home or their home language all weekend. So we have to be sensitive to that. We have to conduct a school climate walk with parents, value their opinion, set aside times for teachers to communicate weekly with the parents, and we have to create a leadership team and a student advisory council composed of diverse groups of students. And then we have to have professional development centered on culturally responsive pedagogy. Now, time for my reflection of my school at Nelson Middle School. So, positive school culture, I think we do very well at that. We have our leader, our principal is big on relationships. She gives feedback. We give feedback to our student in a variety of ways. So I think we're very good at that. And then we're great at parent communication. Weekly, we have to communicate with our parents, positive, negative, and just weekly newsletters to keep them involved. Inclusiveness, supportive school culture, we do well with this. We have a lot of least restrictive environments. Those students with disabilities are in the classrooms as much as possible with the supports they need. And then students love to be peer coaches to those students that have those disabilities. We're equitable. I feel like we have a diverse staff. We have diversity is the norm, and we expect excellence from all of our students. There's no breaking down and only expecting excellence from certain groups. And then we have great professional development with strategies of culturally responsiveness. I can't think of it right now. The circle talk, giving all students a chance to be heard, stuff like that. We do very well with equitable school culture. And then being responsiveness, we love our diversity. We love that we're full of different groups of cultures and backgrounds. We have multicultural night. We have meet the teacher night, and we let students shine in a variety of ways. My school versus the research. I feel like my school does a really good job. Like I just mentioned, in all those ways, we support success and well-being of everyone. We have a very diverse set of classes, clubs, supports, after school, before school, tutorials, library time. We have things that all students can find their spot wherever they need to be successful and feel supported. We develop and maintain the idea of school culture. We have the leadership team. We have PTA. We have meet the principal time that parents can come in and voice their opinion. So those are all things that we also do in order to kind of have this great positive culture, be inclusive, and be responsive. A couple things that I think that we need to improve on as a school, though. I think we need to keep up with our communication and make sure we're holding all teachers accountable, that all teachers do it. We need to have a student advisory council. I really like that piece. And then we do a school climate survey, but I don't really know what we do with it. I feel like our leadership team needs to be more transparent so everyone knows what's going on there. And then my concluding statements, give you a chance to read. You can pause if you need to. Relevancy statement, and my reflection. References. Hope you learned a little bit from my presentation, and have a great day. Thank you.